Two very different cars, two very different badges, and yet two stablemates, because the Jaguar and the Land Rover, of course, belong to the same company these days. On my left, a really aspirational sports car, the Jaguar F-Type V8 Roadster. Quick as well, as you can imagine, just by looking at it. On the other side, a lot more utilitarian. Land Rover's Discovery TD-V6, or in fact, this particular model, the SD-V6, which means it's the slightly more luxurious version. And this vehicle can go absolutely anywhere. We're on the Garden Route, which has an unbelievable array of lovely roads, both tar and dirt. And we specifically are in Sedgefield. What we're going to do here is to have a look at which of these two cars copes with the situation best. We're going to keep the Jaguar, obviously, on-road, driving some of the really nice windy roads that you find in the area, ending up in Uniondale. The Discovery, of course, doesn't have to worry about tar, so it's going to take a more scenic, more convoluted and certainly more challenging route from an off-road perspective, and we'll see which vehicle ends up in Uniondale first.
We started off our rather unusual contest between the Land Rover Discovery and the Jaguar F-Type Roadster by filling the fuel tanks to the brim. Then each vehicle set off on its designated route, the Discovery seeking out the most direct way to Uniondale regardless of surface, while the Jaguar would stick to the black stuff but would explore some quieter, fun-to-drive roads along the way. From Sedgefield, that meant heading to George and then up the Outeniqua Pass before tackling a short but thrilling loop at Walboomskraal. We then planned to head east along the N9 towards Uniondale. Yes, the Jaguar had the longer route, but then we expected it to cover ground a lot faster.
It's probably a good time to think a little bit about what this car really is all about. Of course, a 5-litre V8 supercharged engine under the bonnet, producing an awesome 364 kilowatts of maximum power, torque in excess of 600 Newton meters, and it really is the kind of car that always feels as if it has slightly more power than you might ever need. The result of that is it can be a bit on the twitchy side, nothing intimidating at all, but you just always know that there's a lot of muscle on offer. The gearbox, interestingly enough, an 8-speed automatic, which sounds kind of plain for a car like this, but with a super sharp and super fast shift action, which actually suits this car quite nicely. And then if you look at the camera jolt on the car at the moment, on a bumpy road like this, you also know that this is a very sporty suspension. Certainly on the long run, perhaps not quite as comfortable as one would have liked, and certainly not as comfortable as you're likely to experience in something like the Discovery. But then, this is a sports car, and where it really comes into its own is in the twisties, where you can gear down 2-3 gears and really start winding it, or, as we're about to do, just effortlessly overtake somebody.
Effortless is an apt description of the Jaguar's ability to cover ground. Conditions along the route weren't exactly favourable, ranging from strong winds and damp roads to driving rain and even thunderstorms. To the F-Type Roadster's credit, it took everything in its stride while cosseting its occupants in stylish luxury. The two-seater is brilliant in a cross-country touring role if the emphasis is on rapid progress, but the taut suspension means that chassis response takes precedence over outright comfort.
Considering we're driving our high-performance sports car, our progress since we left Sedgefield hasn't been particularly inspiring. We've been trying to keep to quieter country roads, but of course along the Garden Route there aren't those options. You end up being on the N2 with all its speed traps and all its traffic. We're now on the N9. We've also had some bad weather, and the one time that we really wanted to try and find a quiet road, it ended up in gravel. And of course that just goes to illustrate why sometimes an all-terrain vehicle is a better choice than something as sexy and as fast as the Jag, because of course if we'd been at a Discovery we would have just bombed over that gravel without even blinking an eye. Anyway, it's opening up now, the traffic is getting a bit less, and I get that feeling that soon we'll be able to build up a bit of a head of steam.
And indeed, as we pointed the long prowling nose of the Jaguar eastwards, the traffic soon thinned out, leaving us to explore the long open stretches of the R62 to our heart's content. The supercharged V8 is a monster of an engine, delivering its muscle with such relentless ferocity that its power reserves almost feel infinite. The soundtrack is equally thrilling, rising from an almost guttural low-down growl to an elated all-out roar if you keep your right foot floored. With only the rear wheels to transmit that urge to bumpy tyre, even the stability control can't always keep the tail in check, but that's part of the Jaguar's character. It engages the driver's every sense and sensibility.
Okay, so we're not that far from Uniondale now anymore. The weather is turning grayer and darker by the second. Fortunately, as we actually anticipated, the road did get a lot quieter and we made up a lot of time. The weather's not helping though, and we really want to just put this last little bit of effort into getting to Uniondale to meet up with the Discovery. Of course, we've also just gone through the Poikiesberg Pass, which is really nice, twisty, turny stuff. Even with the road as damp as it is, this car is just so much fun to drive. I'm really looking forward to doing the last couple of Ks with it as well.
All that remained was to drive into the sleepy town of Uniondale, which was also the pre-arranged rendezvous with the Jaguar's go-anywhere rival, the Land Rover Discovery. But the Discovery's route to Uniondale was completely different, travelling from Sedgefield to Knysna and then heading north up the Prince Alfred Pass. A shorter distance, yes, but a lot more muddy, rocky and slippery too.
Now, it's taken us all a little bit longer to get to Uniondale, which, if you look very closely, you might see in the background. And, of course, because there's only one driver and two vehicles, the crew have brought the Discovery here. It actually got here before us. So you have to say, from this point of view, as things stand, the Discovery was the better choice given the conditions we had on the day. But all is not over, because what we're going to do now is swap cars. We're going to take the Discovery back, exactly retracing the steps that we did before. The Jaguar is going to do its route. We're going to meet up on the other side, and maybe there's a bit of an opportunity there for the Jag with quieter roads to make amends and get there ahead of time. I'd hate to put my money on either of these cars. In the conditions, both were perfect. So it's probably going to be a situation of what the weather does, what the traffic does, and as you can see, it's getting darker by the minute, so we better get going really quickly.
After the low-slung Jaguar, the elevated seating position and tall stance of the Discovery felt a little unsettling, but the big 4x4 tackled the twisties, leaving Uniondale with confidence. We joined the Prince Alfred Pass near the hamlet of Aventure, swapping tarmac for gravel, and now the Discovery was really in its element.
These are the kind of conditions Land Rover built this Discovery for. We're in Prince Alfred's Pass. It can get very tricky and twisty, also very muddy today in parts and very slippery, and yet this big 4x4 SUV takes it all in its stride with absolute consummate ease. And you'd be surprised at the level of pace you can maintain despite the conditions we're in. Of course, it has a lusty turbocharged 3-litre V6 engine, 183 kilowatts of maximum power, loads and loads of bottom end torque. In many ways, it's probably best just to let the automatic gearbox do its own thing. There are some shift paddles if you want to be a bit more precise about things, but I'm astonished by just how wieldy this vehicle feels despite the size and also, of course, the sense of gravity, which in this vehicle is very high indeed. So you really have everything here. You have the utility and the space. You have certainly performance, which is surprising, and as we'll find out, it's not bad on tar either. But here, just where really normal folk traveling in little rental cars scare themselves absolutely silly, this is just such a serene and easy and lovely place to spend time in.
In terms of power and power-to-weight ratio, the Discovery is no match for the Jaguar, but then it's no sports car. The SUV's virtues are focused on more pragmatic aspects, such as space, practicality, and go-anywhere 4x4 talent. It uses all four wheels to deliver its 183 kilowatts of maximum power to the road, while the 600 Newton-meters of torque is not far off the Jaguar's 625 Newton-meter peak. The 8-speed automatic gearbox is shared by both cars, albeit with different ratios, but even the Disco offers shift paddles. And yes, it's simply superb off the beaten track, taking the slippery conditions in its stride and always feeling supremely confident. Of course, the Discovery also offers space for 5, a large cargo area, and because it's a diesel, it's not nearly as thirsty as the Jaguar either.
We're just about done with Prince Alfred's Pass now. We've got about 20 kilometers or so of gravel, and then it's tar all the way from there. At the moment, in the heart of the Outeniqua forest, near a forestry station called Diepwelle. And I have to say the Discovery is certainly showing its, or proving its mettle in these conditions. But I'm looking forward to getting onto a bit of tar and to see whether the vehicle's as good on the road as off it.
At this stage, it was going to be a close-run affair. Darkness was setting in, the weather was getting worse, and while our Discovery encountered almost no other vehicles, the Jaguar's progress was being hampered by slower traffic as it closed in on the coast. As it turns out, it was the Jaguar that arrived first this time round, making it a draw for the round trip.
Well, as you can see, our day has ended up a lot later than we expected, also a lot darker and a lot wetter, and we still don't have a definitive verdict on which car is the best. What I can tell you is that if you're looking for a versatile machine that'll handle almost anything you throw at it, the Discovery has to be your choice. Whether it's tar or dirt, fast or slow, it just chugs along, and chugs along in style and pretty competently too. However, talking about style, if you want something fast and sexy, if you're prepared to stay on road all the time, and if you want to be the envy of absolutely every other motorist around you, of course, it's going to have to be the F-Type. So I'll leave the choice up to you. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to try and find a dry place and a nice hot cup of coffee.
A case of horses for courses then. On tar, the Jaguar covered ground far quicker than the Land Rover, but for all-round go-anywhere versatility, there's nothing to touch the Discovery. A streamlined shape, a muscular V8, a quick-shifting gearbox and rear-wheel drive ensure that the Jaguar F-Type Roadster V8S lives up to every performance expectation. The Discovery SD V6 offers space and comfort as well as real 4x4 talent, ensuring it can go almost anywhere, and it's still swift and fun to drive regardless of the terrain.